All right, this video is going to guide you through all of your solving absolute value equations. I'm going to focus more on the type 3s, and if you're watching this video for type 1 or the basic ones, don't worry. I think you're going to follow along with the type 3, and it's going to help you solve pretty much all the different types of absolute value equations that Alex can throw at you, and I think you're going to be just fine. So I'm going to start off with the first example being the absolute value of 4 times the variable w plus 4 equal to 28. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you're solving an absolute value equation is to isolate the absolute value. And so when I say isolate the absolute value, you got to find where are the absolute value bars and get that guy just by itself. You want to get absolute values equal to like some number, okay? So like in this example, here's my absolute value. I need to get that term, the absolute value term, alone. So your first couple steps might be like simple, like algebra 1, solve for the variable kind of thing, where here, you know, if I got to get the absolute value of 4w by itself, I got to get rid of this plus 4. So what I'm going to do is subtract 4 from both sides. That way, 4 minus 4 cancel, and I have just the absolute value of 4w all by itself equal to 24. That's job 1. The absolute value is isolated. I have the absolute value equal to some number. All right. As a side note, if your absolute value, whatever it is, and I don't care what's inside that absolute value sign, if you have an absolute value equal to some negative number, that's impossible. That would be no solution, because absolute value is a distance a number is from 0, and distance can never be negative. All right. Now note here, I don't have that situation. I have my absolute value equal to a positive, so I have to continue. So now the second thing I have to do is essentially say, all right, if the absolute value of 4w is 24, that means that 4w, imagine this, like the inside, this number where I have the circle, could be one of two things. If this number inside the absolute value were 24, that would be a true equation because absolute value of 24 equals 24. So I could write 4w should be equal to 24, right? If this were the number, if this were to be the number 24, we'd be in great shape because its absolute value is 24. So I'm just setting 4w equal to what I want it to be, which is 24, all right? But that's not the only thing I could take the absolute value of that will give me 24. 4w, that inside, could also be the number negative 24, because if I were to take the absolute value of negative 24, it's still 24. So I have to set up really two different equations. 4w could be 24, or 4w could be equal to negative 24. There are two possible solutions. So basically what you're going to want to do, once you get your absolute value equal to your number, you're going to set the inside, okay, so you're going to set the inside equal to that number and the inside equal to the opposite of whatever that number is. So inside was 4w equal to that number, 24, that's the first equation. Inside 4w equal to the opposite of that number, negative 24, and then the last step is just simply solve. And I'll show you it's easy to check your answer. So if I have 4w equals 24, I'd have to divide by 4, and I'd get an answer of w is 6. In this case, if I divide by 4, I get w could be negative 6. There are two answers here. W could be negative 6 and positive 6, and that's what I'd have to enter in ALEKS. Just to show you that that's absolutely correct, here's how I would check. Remember the original was 4w in the absolute values plus 4 equals to 28. If I were to check w equals negative 6, by plugging in the negative 6, I'd get the absolute value of 4 times negative 6 plus 4 equal to 28? Well, 4 times negative 6 is negative 24 in the absolute value, plus 4 should be equal to 28. The absolute value of negative 24 is 24, right? It's positive 24, and if I were to add 4 to that, that is 28. I'd get 28 equals to 28, which means it's true. If I were to try w equals positive 6, I think you could see I'd get the same thing. The only difference would be I'd get 4 times 6 in the absolute value plus 4 equals to 28. This would be 24, and the absolute value of just 24 stays 24. And if you add 4 to that, you'd get 28 equals to 28, another true statement. So I know for sure negative 6 and positive 6 are my solutions. A lot of students will only get like the positive answer and forget the negative one, and that's why they'll get it wrong in ALEKS. I'm going to show you another example that's a little bit more sophisticated. If you could do this one, I think you'll conquer all absolute value problems in ALEKS. So here's the last one I'm going to show you. Okay, let's say I have negative 8 times the absolute value of y plus 5 on the outside equals to negative 75. Now, remember, your first step is to isolate the absolute value. I'm going to circle that. I want to get that red circle alone. So you got to work outside in. Get rid of that plus 5 by first subtracting 5. That way, I get rid of the positive 5 on this side of the equation, and I'm left with negative 8 times the absolute value of y plus 5 equal to negative 80. Right? Now I still need to get this absolute value by itself. It's not quite yet by itself. It's being multiplied by negative 8. I got to get rid of multiplying by negative 8, so I'm going to divide everything by negative 8. By doing that, I've now isolated my absolute value. I have the absolute value of y plus 5 equals negative divided by negative makes positive 10. Now that was important, by the way. I was kind of thinking this might be a no solution kind of a problem, but because I divided a negative by negative, my absolute value is now equal to a positive 10, and I can continue. Now this is the tricky part. You have to set the inside, y plus 5, equal to 10, but you can also set up another equation where the inside, y plus 5, equals to the opposite of 10, which is negative 10. Solving this one by subtracting 5 gives y equals 5 as an answer. If I subtract 5 in this equation, I get y equals to negative 15, these being my two solutions. And again, I think in ALEKS you have to separate them with commas, so like 5 comma negative 15 would be your two solutions. Good luck and thanks for watching.